Yeah, you'll do your best.
I mean, if some good shit happens, I can't promise too much.
I understand.
And if bad shit happens, I'll Bud Dwyer myself live on air.
Yes, that's what I
Just kidding. We're streaming already. Just joking. I won't do that. Oh man. All right. Cool. All right, I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to
All right, me too. So I'm gonna
get this train rolling.
I'm gonna hit record in 3, 2.
Oh my god. It's time, Nick.
I know. I'm stressed out.
We've gotten through the season. Season 6 is in the books.
That's right.
And it is time for the best of the rest. You know, we go through, 3 albums per artist every single week. And we just can't hit all of them, man.
You can't do it.
We can't hit all of them. So this is when we get a chance to talk just a little bit about a couple extra albums that we didn't get to go over, but damn, did we want to? Or
yes, we did.
Maybe we didn't even know about. Maybe this is another chance to experience an artist we like.
True.
And we get to talk about it, which is the best part.
It is the best part.
So before we get too far into it, this is Totem Talks. I'm Pat. You're Nick.
I am.
And we have that worked out now. And if you have...
For a while, we weren't sure who was
who. We weren't sure. I mean,
we didn't know what was
do we really know who we are?
No.
I mean, gosh, that's a whole other question. But what I can say is, if you've been hanging out with us for season 6, thank you so much. It has been a blast. If you are just discovering us with this episode, wait. I would go back and listen to some episodes from the season first, because there will inevitably be some type of spoiler, some type of discussion where the season gets brought up. It's a post-show, a post-season episode here.
That's correct.
And if you are one of our regular listeners who's just hanging out with us, welcome back. Next week, you're going to get our season 6 awards show.
Very exciting.
Which is always fun. We get to talk about who was the best artist of the season, who was the not best artist of the season, who was, in each of our individual categories, who won. We get to talk about some of our personal awards that we give out, our most exciting moment or disappointing moment, our wait and see award, which is an artist that, we got to wait and see on. Maybe we just need a little more tape before we can make a real decision about them. All that fun stuff. Looking forward to it. And that's about it, man. The way that this works, I'll just keep going a little bit here.
Yeah, keep talking.
The way that this works is we have each picked 6 albums from the season that we didn't get to go over. And we listened through each other's and our own. So 12 albums this week. And we're ranking them. We're ranking them. The ranking is, I'll be honest, a little arbitrary.
It definitely is arbitrary.
Because we typically like them all. This is a more positive episode as things go.
100%.
Although there might be some like little hiccups here or there. Who knows?
Possibly.
But we rank them, and then we basically just get to see how close we were to each other's rankings.
Right.
Which I have no hope of, because you're not even sure of your rankings.
I haven't.
How could I be sure?
Like, I have had a long time to think about it, and I still haven't been able to do it. And I will let everyone know ahead of time. I know for sure which one is my favorite. Like, if I could only have one of these albums on a desert island for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I know which one I ranked 6th, even though I really enjoyed it. But there is a dead heat toss-up every record is equally good to me in between.
Now, I'm curious before we get in, because you're going to go first.
Yeah, I figured.
Uh, did you feel any hiccups on my ordering my albums?
I had a lot of trouble ordering your albums as well, if I'm gonna be honest.
It's
I
tough.
mean,
I
like, at
had
some
trouble.
point, with yours, I was just like, "Alright, I'm just gonna throw some numbers on, and then if I feel differently later, I can change it."
Right.
Just kinda try to feel that, but, like, yours were all extremely close for me as well.
I
All of
agree.
them.
The
Yeah.
the
This is
the differences were tight.
exactly, like, 'cause there's always a lot of great albums on this episode, and we always have a little bit of a hard time ordering them, and it's always like, "Oh, man, this was really tough." This has been the hardest season for me so far. Like, season 6 was the closest to damn near impossible of any of them.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think it's hard to say, but like maybe we're starting to see a little bit, not the negative, not the drawback of going down to two artists, but two artists is there's less albums, which means and this was a strong season for like
Yeah,
the top of the top was strong.
exactly. Mhm.
All good things,
Yes.
honestly. When we get to listen to 12 good albums, I'm not complaining.
Exactly.
So
And
yeah,
so
why
I'll
don't
go in
you take us into your sixth
with my
one?
album number 6, which again, despite being 6th, was an album I really enjoyed all the way through, and it is Night of the Living Dregs by Dixie Dregs.
That was what I had for you.
I thought you would. And look, I mean, it has to do a little bit with the style being a little bit more one-dimensional than the other artists' styles. Um,
Sure.
Dixie Dregs are a band I really enjoy. I mean, you could definitely make the argument, although there's a lot of phenomenal performances on these records, you could definitely make the argument that this record has, like, some of the absolute best musicianship of the 12 that we listened to. Um, I mean, and the cool part about that too is it's actually a half studio album, half live record. So the
Yeah.
whole B side of this album was recorded from their set at the Montreux Jazz Festival, which is like a very huge thing. Um, and my favorite part about that is there's not a change in the quality from the A side to the B side. Like, you hear the audience cheering at the beginning and the end of the songs,
Yeah.
in terms of how tight the playing is, in terms of how, like, flawlessly executed the songs are by these musicians, like, they absolutely nail it, live and in studio, and they did actually get a Grammy nomination for Best Instrumental Performance for this record too.
Yeah, which well deserved. I won't harp too much on it because you said a lot of it. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It was a very good album, very strong album. You're correct about the musicianship. For me, two big things made it number 6 in my book. One, no vocals.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that
like
was a given.
vocals. I like
I know.
hearing people sing. Two, honestly, like as much as I loved the live second half and the studio first half, the live second half has such energy in it
Sure, yeah, there is
that like
something
the
to that.
first half falls a little flatter to me because of that. Like
Yeah, it's
live
hard to
albums,
recapture.
a really, really good live album with a really good audience who both has really good energy but respects the song
Performance,
itself
yeah, and doesn't
is electrifying.
Mhm.
And I think it was such a good second half that I'm like, wow, the first half by comparison is like,
Sure, I get that.
man, I want to feel that energy, which I wasn't in retrospect.
Sure,
Which again, great album, but
exactly.
that's why I put it
That's the
sixth
most
as
important
well.
thing. Yep.
So my sixth album, because we're going back and forth, we're
We
snaking
are.
it. This was really tough for me.
This is really tough.
It was really tough. I sat down. I probably reordered everything but one
Mm,
like 6 or 7 times. I had one after my first listen through.
okay.
And then I was like, any one of these could be any other number.
Sure.
And with a couple small issues, I settled on Every Picture Tells a Story by Rod Stewart.
Interesting, okay.
It was close, but that was my number 6 album. And here's the thing about it. Great album. Rod Stewart sounds great on it. It has Maggie May, which is one
Mhm.
of his biggest, if not his biggest song.
Yep.
And I think for most of this album, It absolutely is perfect. The vocal fry in his voice at the same time sounds extremely painful, but
Yeah, it
also
does.
very in tune and very character, like very signature to his style.
Definitely.
So, and it works in a way that, as you know, his career progresses, we talked about his last album, it doesn't work.
Mhm, mm-mm.
I think the really good tracks on this, you have the title track, which is really good. You obviously have Maggie May. I think a hidden gem for me was Mandolin Wind,
Sure.
which I really enjoyed listening to. And then after That's All Right, there is a very short Amazing Grace
Mhm.
with just a slide guitar and him,
Right.
and it was excellent.
Yeah.
For me, there's two songs on here that I have as mid, which is the
Interesting.
only
Okay.
reason it became six.
Okay.
The actual cover of That's All Right,
Okay.
it was. I don't mean to. This isn't a pun, but it was fine. It was mid. It was all
Yeah.
right. Like
That's all right.
it was. It was not as good as the original, and there was not enough difference to make me really want to go back to this version.
Mhm.
Rod Stewart has enough other songs that I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then the song Seems Like a Long Time.
Okay.
Uh it's one of two songs on here with a long time as the end of the song.
You're right.
But the Bob Dylan cover or the cover of the Bob Dylan song Tomorrow Is a Long Time. Way better. And Seems a Long Time just dragged for me a little bit. Two small nitpicks. I would listen to this album again right now,
Mhm.
but that's why I put it sixth.
Sure. So I really struggled with that too. I put it 1.
Okay.
But it was really close with several others. I mean,
Yeah, it was.
it is, for the record, ranked 172 on Rolling Stone's top 500 albums. It is considered, maybe his best work, or at least in contention for his best
Sure.
work.
And I agree
Um,
with both of those things.
yeah, it's cool that you get all the members of the Faces who play at least some part on this record. Um, I was kind of surprised it got an A plus from Robert Christgau too, because
He does
which
not like to give out really good scores.
no, he doesn't,
Not
and
to good albums anyway.
yeah, right, exactly. Um, but you mentioned a lot of the great hits. You mentioned his voice. I like the 12-string guitar in the title track.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite Rod Stewart songs is actually on this album that we didn't talk about at all, which is the closer, Find a Reason to Believe,
Yeah.
which was actually the original A side when it was released as a single with Maggie May on the B side. And so both of those songs became popular because Maggie May was very popular. But
Maggie May was rather popular.
I think they're both equally good, though.
Yeah.
I like Find a Reason to Believe just as much. And I think I Know I'm Losing You is a really cool Temptations cover that's a little unexpected.
Yeah, I think there was, a lot of good, and even the things that I said as negatives, they weren't bad at
Yeah,
all. I mean, the whole album is very strong.
right.
Just two things that if
Mhm.
those two songs weren't on it, I'd have been fine.
Understandable.
So we're going with me continuing on.
Correct.
And again, it just gets tougher and tougher.
It does.
For me, my number 4 after
You're 5.
just so much, or my number 5 after just so much consternation for me was 4 by Foreigner.
Sure.
Did you have that one at 2?
I had that at 5.
Okay, good. There we go. Yeah, so that was my number 5, and it's really down to one thing. What they're doing is really, really good for what they're doing, but it's like a cheesy 80s album at its heart.
It
With
has a feeling.
Yeah, with I would say 2.5 really good songs that kind of transcend that 80s vibe.
Mhm.
Jukebox Hero is very strong. It's a good story, it's a good vibe, it's a good hook, it's catchy, all that good stuff. And then I really liked Urgent, specifically
Urgent,
the sax
yeah.
solo in
Yep,
Urgent
that's my
was
biggest note on this whole record.
absolutely killer.
Do you
So,
remember and I always say this to Jackie and she never remembers, in the early 2000s, there was I think it might have been a Verizon commercial that used that song in it because it was, like, trying to show how they get service everywhere, and if
oh,
you have
yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
urgent problem, and so people are, like, screaming it on the streets,
Yes.
"Urgent, urgent."
I do remember that
I
now that you
love
said
that.
it. Hey, you know what? And it's a great track. Uh all of this is, I mean, Lou Gramm sounds amazing on
He's
this album.
insane.
He's so good.
Like, I don't even know how he makes the sounds that he makes.
It's truly like there's multiple singers on my list, particularly, I think,
Oh, yeah.
that absolutely knock vocals out of the park. And Lou Gramm is one of them. He like legitimately, like you could discuss him as the best singer we covered this season.
He's in the
He's in
discussion.
the discussion
He's
for
in the discussion, and, like, we had a pretty strong season.
we had a very strong season. So I think for me, like the writing, all catchy stuff, even though it gets a little bit cheesy. The sound of I really like the Foreigner sound because
Sure.
even when they're doing the 80s rock cheesiness, it's done in a very almost 70s rock way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like it sounds more authentic, even though it's a little bit of a cheese fest. The two songs for me that were the reason it's number 5 or Break It Up.
I love that song.
It was cheesy. The lyrics, man, the lyrics
Oh,
were
of course they
cheesy.
are.
Right, but not all the lyrics hit that level of just cheese.
Yeah. Oh,
And then
lyrics
Waiting
aren't
for a
good.
Girl Like You
Like, the
was
biggest hit on
also
this album?
yes, but it's cheesy as hell.
Of course
Also,
it is.
right, but that's what I'm saying.
No, 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 no. Waiting for a Girl Like You was the biggest hit on the album. Jukebox Hero became bigger later on with, like, Guitar Hero, whatever it was on.
Sure. You know what?
Huh.
You're right. I'll give you that. But again, I think that
That's crazy. Those are
those
the 2 you
two
picked as the downsides.
well, only because of the lyrics.
Oh,
The whole song, the whole album
mhm.
like has elements of cheese to it, except for I
Absolutely.
Jukebox Hero really doesn't.
Okay.
Because it's not about the same themes that the rest of the album's about.
Mhm.
I just think that you hit really, really cliche lyrics in those two,
Oh, definitely.
which is my only downside because I thought that
Understandable.
this is a group that avoided the cliche rather well,
Mhm.
even though it's cheesy. They avoided cliche in most of the album.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start by putting Urgent aside. Urgent is the best song on this record.
Yeah,
Urgent is maybe the best Foreigner song.
sure.
It's really good. The 2 that you mentioned were actually, like, the 2 songs that I wrote as, like, when I was first getting into them when I was, like, 13 years old. They
Yeah,
were, like, when I first got this record for Christmas, which I remember, like, I was so excited about it, and, it was really, like, the A side of the album that had all the stuff that you know. The A side has Waiting for a Girl, Jukebox Here, it has
yeah,
Urgent, it has Break It Up. Luann's another pretty good one. Um but what kinda surprised me about this record was that there wasn't really a drop off in quality on the B-side. Like, they're
no.
not known as well, but they're all like, they could have been singles, and if they were, then they would probably be the ones that we remember from Varner, you know? Like, I thought
I
that there was really good consistency on the record.
I think that that is one of the things we said about Foreigner when we covered them
Yeah.
was that
Mhm.
their entire like work was very strong
Absolutely.
of what we listened to.
Alright. So I'm gonna go to my 5, but here's the thing, I don't have a 5. So, of my 4 albums that are all tied in the
You're
middle,
coming up with you're giving me
well,
a
here's what I'm gonna
5.
do. I have them written down in the order I listen to them. So, Pat, pick a number between 1 and 4, and that will be my number 5 album.
Well, but then I know I'm gonna get my list right in my head because I know
No,
what
no,
you
no, I'm
listed.
not telling you the
I
I'm just
know,
saying
I know.
whatever order I listen to them in, so whatever number between 1 and 4 you pick, that's what it's gonna be.
2.
Okay. And I am sort of sad that you picked it, because I don't wanna disrespect this album because I love this album, and it's one that I've had a very long relationship with.
Okay.
It is the Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society.
Fascinating. Okay.
So that just happened to be of the 4 in my tie, the one that I listened to second.
You know what? Here's the thing, audience. Here's the thing, listeners. This is a cop out, right? From Mr. McLaughlin over here.
Okay, alright, I'm
It's a
changing my
total
mind then.
cop
We'll
out.
save that one for later.
You're copping out.
I'm
You're
copping
like, well,
out,
they're
it's
all
so
tied.
hard.
Of course it's hard. It's the point is they're all so good. What are the little things that separate them? The fact that you were sad it was a number 5
Ugh.
means it shouldn't be number 5.
Yeah, but
Done.
I would be sad if any of these are never like, I can't do it. I can't do it this
I
season, and
I'm
only
gonna
this
need it.
season.
I'm gonna need it.
Next season, I'll do better. So the Kinks are the Village Green, because I've already spoiled it, so we might as well do it now,
Fine.
and I'll try to do better amongst the other ones. Okay,
Yeah, I can do
so
this. I
this
forgot
record,
I put all these in and I just didn't do them yet.
yeah. So this record, again, it was my first full length Kinks album that I ever owned. Um, and it is exactly what we were kind of hoping to get from them when we had them on the episode. So
Yep.
just a little bit about like what this album is. Essentially, at this point, the Kinks have been banned from the United States, and we talk about that on the episode.
Yeah.
But the fact that they have to like kind of sit in their own Britishness and really like absorb their own culture and think about like this is now our biggest market. Let's kind of think about our identity and who we are going forward. And so Ray Davies writes this record, which is inspired by like a lot of English pastoral poetry. It's inspired by Dylan Thomas's work called Under Milkwood, which talks about like the all of the goings on in a Welsh town on a spring day. Like essentially, what this album tries to do is to capture like a day of the experience of what it is like to exist in like a small English town, but not necessarily in a contemporary way, in like a slightly nostalgic way where things have been idealized a little bit, the same way that people do with like previous decades. They kind of look at them through rose colored glasses of
Yeah.
nostalgia for what they think it was versus what it actually was.
Sure.
And so Davies takes that concept and he knocks it out of the park on this record. I mean, every song to me um, has its own like little life. Every song captures something a little bit different. Uh, and again, the strength of the Kinks that we talked about was like his ability to draw on so many different genres and influences of music while he's writing these songs really shines through here. You get some like great riff writing, you get some great tempo and feel variation. Um, it's so good. um, I'll say I think Picture Book is maybe the song I'll recommend off of this because I really love the guitar riff on that. But like experience it from beginning to end. This is an album that you should really just hear every song on and experience it from beginning to end.
Yeah. Listen, this is, I wouldn't call it a concept album, but it is definitely a
Mhm.
conceptualized album. So I do
Yes.
think a full album listen is warranted here. I had this as your number two. I
I'm
really
not
enjoyed
surprised. Like
listening
I
to this
could have
one.
easily put it at number 2. And I would,
Yeah,
you know.
I really enjoyed listening to this one. You took the words right out of my mouth. This was the album that we were disappointed we didn't get by the Kinks
Yeah.
in the finale. Not the album, not knowing the album, just like what we wanted from them. This
Yeah.
was the deliverance of that. It was clean, it was well constructed, it was inspired writing. There was clear work put behind the thought process going into the writing. And this album, even more than what we listened to in episode, is where I was like, oh, okay, this is where I can hear Ray Davies being the S tier caliber writer that I
Yeah.
know he is.
Yeah.
So thoroughly enjoyed it on my end.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to make an effort here to
Okay.
just go ahead and pick my number 4 record from the last 3.
Okay.
And it will not be easy. But I'm going to go with, because I don't want to be too predictable here. I'm going to go with The Turn of a Friendly Card by the Alan Parsons Project.
Let's go.
Um,
Nailed it.
and this is arguably their second best record. I think we definitely listened to their best record in the episode with Eye in the Sky.
Yeah.
But this is the record that came out before that one. And it really previews how good this group can be when they hit their peak. I mean, and it was done in only 2 weeks. Most of their records, they really took their time with, took a couple of months in the studio and worked things out. This one was kind of rushed through, but I don't necessarily get that because it's still really strong and there's a really good theme all the way through. So it's essentially an album about like gambling addiction.
Yep.
um, which is super interesting as a full concept for the record, especially in like the side two. There's the turn of a friendly card suite, which is like 5 songs with 2 movements of the song, a turn of a friendly card that all kind of go into each other. But really, on the A side, the songs do a great job of like seamlessly blending one into the next. Um, Even though they're individual songs, you get some really good tunes like Games People Play, Time, um, and they're all different. You know, we said the same thing about Eye in the Sky. Is you get such a good variety within the record itself of tempo changes, of instrumentation changes, and I think a good example of this is there's like guitar harmony parts done in the song "I Don't Want to Go Home," and like the compositional detail is what I wrote that they put into that is just reflected in the rest of the album. Like this is clearly every little instrumental part that goes into constructing these songs was thought about, was, you know, really crafted together. And that's why you get such a great record with a coherent message.
Cool. Yeah. Listen, I won't harp on it too much. I completely agree with you. I did have this as your number 4, but again, your albums are strong. My albums are strong.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
all good
tough.
stuff. I love the idea of the concept album for it.
Hmm.
It did come across to me,
Yeah,
you know, what like it didn't immediately. I wasn't like, oh, this is an album about gamblers and gambling
right.
addiction.
But it's there.
But I was like, this is an album about something. I'm getting vibes that they're all connected. And like I read it and it was like, like it all opened in my brain, which
Yeah,
is what
and
you want.
in the Gold Bug, there's like a minute where it's like warming in, and you kind of get that like that whistly sound, like
Yeah.
you're out in the old west. Like it's almost signaling to you, we're heading out to Vegas now.
Hey, it's clever, it's well done,
Mhm.
it's a good concept. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Oh man, so we're at my number 4.
We are.
This was almost impossible for me.
Understandable.
Like it was so tough. There's one reason I put this album at 4. My 3 and 4 I flip-flopped more than anything. I was even like right now, like, should I flip-flop them again? But I'm
Sure.
not
Yeah,
gonna
no.
do it. And it's Whispers by Jackie Wilson,
Sure.
which was an incredible album. Thorough recommend to listen to this. Jackie Wilson, another strong contender for maybe the strongest vocalist we covered this
Exactly.
season.
Yeah.
He knocks it out of the park on this album. I think this is an album from 1966, and it sounds like it's from 1966. Like you get the pure sounds of the time period. A lot of the songs are about love and like being my girl and all that stuff. So it's a bit dated, but I don't care about that because it's really good. It does a great job of showcasing the difference of the time though, because there's really multiple stylings here. You
Hmm.
have slower ballady tunes, and then you have those like more upbeat, like almost like Motown dance hits
Hmm.
all mixed in on this album, which is really well done. I think there's 2 songs on here that are real strong highlights for me. The song Who Am I is mind-bogglingly good on vocal. Uh and I had it as the best song on the album on
Hmm.
vocal until Tears Will Tell It All, which I legitimately had to look up. I'm like, is this still Jackie Wilson? Because he sounds so remarkably different and is hitting all of I mean the notes, the range this man hits just on this album alone is crazy to me.
Yeah.
The only reason I have this at number 4 and not number 3 is because covers. A lot of covers
Yeah.
here. And that's the only thing taken away from it, because the performance is electrifying.
Sure. Yeah. No,
I had to dock a little bit because of the amount of covers, which is all of them.
and that yeah, right. And honestly, so I have this at 6, but not because I didn't enjoy every second of it. I have it at 6 for the same reason I have Dixie Dregs at 6 for my list, which is it is like maybe the least diverse album on the list in a way. Like
Sure.
it's the most one note of its era type record,
But what a
even
note.
though it's a note that's great and an era that I really love. So for that reason, and with the fact that he's not writing the songs, I left it at 6. But I mean, you already said everything there is to say about his performances, and how electrifying he is as a singer. And also, I think we get a lot of his like deeper range. Like he is singing a lot more like deeper in his chest for a lot of the verses of some of these
Yeah.
songs here, and it comes through wonderfully. Um,
Full
so
agree. Okay, so number 3.
yes,
And I've already mentioned how, it could have gone either way with my number 4 and number 3. The amount of original songs on this is the only reason. However, it was still a really good album, and it is How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful by Florence and the Machine.
I also have that at number 3 for you.
There you go. Look at us. This album is exactly what I needed to hear from Florence and the Machine, because her first 2 albums are both very, very good, and she sounds very good on them. The only negative you could say for them is they're a little bit samey by the end of the second full album.
Sure.
So I saw this was the 3rd album on the set, and I was like, the one thing I'm looking for here, is there a departure? Because we did listen to the last album and we'd heard that there was a departure between her second album and her most recent album. So I'm like, when does that start? I'm hoping it's this album, and it was.
Yeah.
There is the Florence and the Machine sound with like the abstract choral background throughout, and things like that, but it's definitely a difference from Ceremonials. I think it has both moments that are more subdued than Ceremonials, but then also times where it's not afraid to kick it up even further than Ceremonials does. So it has more dynamic range.
Yeah.
Which is what I was looking for. Her vocals are still incredible. No surprise, was not surprised at all, because she still sounds incredible on her most recent work. So I knew there was no chance of it not sounding incredible. The slower songs did start to drag just a bit for me. Really only Ship to Wreck, the opening track, which was just, it didn't fit her voice well for me. She sounded good on it. She sounded really good on it.
That's like literally the opposite of my note on that.
Sure, but here's the thing. I think Florence could sing the phone book.
Yeah.
And make it sound wonderful. So like listening to the lyrics and listening to the song, I'm like, I don't believe you singing it. Kind of like that's what it felt like to me. It's like, I didn't feel like it was, because it sounded almost like a workman song.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't believe you as like a workman, Florence. I'm sorry. Like, I wouldn't believe you if you like sang the Dirt Road Anthem either, but you could probably sing it better than whoever sings it. I don't even know who sings that.
I have no idea what
I
it is.
just picked a country song at random.
I have no idea what that even is. So
I think it's Jason Aldean.
Sounds like the kind of thing I wouldn't know anything about.
I want to say it's Jason Aldean. I
believe you.
However, a small complaint that I don't believe her singing it, because she sounds great on it.
That never even occurred to me because I don't hear the words. So
that's fine. Some real good tracks for me though. The title track, A+.
Yep.
I want to. It is such a typical sounding Florence and the Machine song, but I mean that in the best way.
Yeah.
And then almost a typical Florence and the Machine song, What Kind of Man? The difference, the separating factor, and the reason I have it in higher than the title track for me is there's this like kind of in your face guitar riff that happens in it, which was not expected, but was welcome.
Of course.
And it was it was part of the signs of the departure from her first two albums, where like she's not afraid to get a little more involved in that type of soundscape.
Yeah.
And then I'll close it out by mentioning just another positive song for me, which was Mother. I
Okay.
enjoyed listening to that one as well.
So I will start by saying I thought that Chip Wreck was a super powerful opening song.
Sure.
And the vocals on it were out of this world. What I think makes the title track stand out was the use of horns, which is maybe something that you didn't expect as much from this group.
Sure.
Um, and that is sort of it and sort of not. Like, I think it is like the first two albums were working towards this. This is where they perfected exactly what the Florence and the Machine sound is, but also were comfortable with branching out and throwing in some instrumentations and things that you wouldn't expect. And it still felt like this is it. You've perfected what you do. Um, and I want to give credit to someone who probably wouldn't get credit way, way, way down on the personnel listings. I think maybe the MVP of this record is a woman named Sally Herbert, who did most of the orchestration, conducting, and arrangements for strings, brass, flute, and the rest of the woodwinds. So, I mean, I think a lot of that orchestration, a lot of that coloring of the music is what makes this record so great, and she is the reason why I think this record is so great in a lot of ways.
Excellent job, Sally.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Okay.
All right, Nick.
So does that mean it's my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay.
Come on, stay strong. You
I'm gonna
got
stay
this.
strong. Look, it's down to 3 and 2, and so I'm just gonna go with what my head is telling me to do.
Yep.
And so at number 3, I'm gonna say Hero and Heroine by Straubs.
Okay. Understood.
Um it was tough to do this. It was tough to only put it at 3, but I mean, it was tough to do this with every record.
I get it.
It starts on this epic 3-movement song called Autumn, which is like an incredible, epic, perfectly executed. But actually, before I say anything else about the record, I should say going into this album, the band as constructed kind of blew up and everybody was out except for Dave Cousins and Dave Lambert. They were the only two left in the band. They had to kind of rebuild it. Brought in some people from Renaissance and Steelers Wheel. And they rebuilt this band, I think, better than ever. I think it's really hard to argue that Hero and Heroine is not the best Straubs album, and we really liked all the Straubs albums.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, there's again like the thing that is probably the best tie-in between all the albums that I chose. You get such great variation in styles, you get such great variation in writing, but strong writing in every genre that they try. Interesting orchestrations. The title track was completely brilliant. Like the performances on it were great, the instrumentations were great. The songs kind of move into each other really nicely throughout the record. Rolling Stone even acknowledged it at number 44 on their top 50 prog albums of all time. Like there is nothing wrong with this. Was basically a perfect prog record. It was really hard to not put it at even higher, but it was really hard not to do that with every album. So I don't know.
Listen, I really enjoyed listening to it. I had it at 5. I just, I enjoyed listening to it. It was very strong throughout. Yeah, I don't have any real complaints about it. I just thought that some of the other ones went a little higher for me, but it was close.
Yeah,
that's
this
what
one
it boils down
almost
to.
stole things for me, but
It was close. I could see it.
it was really
I see where you put it, and
Yeah.
I know these were all kind of similar to you. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're talking about nothing but good albums here. So
Exactly. And so I'm going to move on to my number 2. And this is the last one that I was really, really struggling with because my number one was solidified. But all of these most recent ones were close. Village Green was close. Hero and Heroine was close. Turn of a Friendly Card was close. But number two is Permanent Waves by Rush.
Yep.
I mean,
that makes sense.
This is my favorite Rush album of all time. You get two right off the bat. The first two songs are, I think, two of the most iconic Rush songs that exist, in the Spirit of Radio and Free Will. Jacob's Ladder is a really strong follow-up. I mean, you get Entre Nous, which is cool. Different Strings, which is one of the rare Geddy Lee lyrics, is also like a different sound than anything else that you kind of expect to get from this band. It's a good change of pace from the rest of the record. It's in a really good spot. And the musicianship, obviously, all the way through is top tier. Like they're absolutely killing it on every one of these songs. The riff writing is, again, excellent. The guitar riffs are fantastic. The drum fills are exactly what they need to be. The bass line writing is perfect. I have no negative things to say about the record. One thing that I found kind of interesting was how expensive the tour was when they decided to take this album on the road. It cost $12,500 per day to move all the equipment, including the landing lights from a Boeing 707 and a $50,000 mixing console.
Okay.
I
mean, dear Lord, the pricing.
I know. So the band themselves, each of the guys, Neil, Geddy, and Alex, only made $1,000 per show on this tour. Which, considering a band as popular as Rush, selling millions of records, the fact that they're making $1,000 a night is mind-blowing at this point in their career.
I mean, they had to pay for it somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They made the call that it was worth it to have the spectacle, which I know.
Right.
The one thing I know about Rush, I mean, I know more than this just about Rush, but the one thing I've always known about Rush is they are spectacular. And by that I mean like they put on a true spectacle in their live performance.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
They're one of the bands that like maybe didn't start it, but definitely are the ones that come to mind when you think of like,
I mean, I'll tell you who comes to mind.
And fog and crazy spectacle and all that stuff.
Pink Floyd is the band.
Pink Floyd comes to mind as well.
The band for putting on a spectacle at their show.
Sure.
Like literally building a giant 40-foot brick wall in front of the band before the audience, bringing on a second band, flying like a huge inflatable pig over the stadium, putting creating films. But
yeah. Well, we weren't talking about Pink Floyd, which is why I didn't.
I know, but you brought up the thing that I think they are more known for than any other group. So
right, no, I get it. I had this as number 3, so very close to you. We were right there.
I see that we're going to have the same number 1. Thank goodness.
Yes, I agree. Listen, I have no complaints about this album. I think it's really good. I think if you the things you like about Rush are all absolutely on display here. Neil Peart's lyrics and drumming are both just phenomenal. Like for me, like Neil Peart grounding the rhythm section so wholly and completely while also doing the crazy.
He does do the crazy.
But he does the crazy, but he never loses it.
Never.
Ever. Yeah. Like it's always here, and it's always, if you listen like through the flare, you can always hear the beat underneath it. He's always keeping time, which is just very excellent. And one of the things that, as I've sang more in the band, I've come to like really appreciate when it's there. Like, as we've grown and how it's been there more and more and more as we have had either new people come in or just people growing in the band, having that where it's like that good combination of like, yeah, I can go wild and crazy, but I'm always keeping one
Mhm.
is so appreciated here. And then just again, you just have to remind yourself this is a three-piece band.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most impressive things. Like their
Totally.
soundscape that they create with three
Mhm.
people is
Oh, yeah.
top shelf. All right, so my turn for my number two.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
Yeah, and again, we're really close here. This was, you know, I knew my one after one listen through, but my two, as I listened more and more and more, like the cream rose to the top for me.
Mhm.
And it is The Teaser and the Fire Cat by Cat Stevens. A absolute wonderful song, or just Teaser and the Fire Cat, an absolute
Yeah.
wonderful song, an absolute wonderful album. And I did not read the children's book,
Oh, I
with
didn't know
which
there
the
was one.
title was the cover art and the name of the album were both also a Cat Stevens children's book.
Fascinating.
That is apparently not related to the album.
Okay.
I didn't read it, so
Yeah.
but apparently it's not. Although I get it,
Sure.
I get the that it could be both because the one thing I know about this album, the one thing I had written down first was whimsical.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a very whimsical album. With Cat Stevens, you're getting eccentricity in the lyric. That is known. He does that. He has songs that tug your heartstrings, and he has songs that make you question reality.
Mhm.
And there is no in between. Uh, there's this like playful quality that he has that you get with some of his other albums, but it still has this like folky like brilliance about it that I really enjoyed. Highlights for me, Peace Train, really great song,
Yeah.
beautiful tune. If you want to get into the slightly more maybe melancholy, if you can call it that, Bitter Blue
Okay.
was
Mhm.
was a really good song as well. And then Morning Has Broken was another one for me.
Another
So those
classic. Yeah.
three really stood out to me. Although every song stood out really well. I for somebody who knew Father and Son coming into this season, and like what I found out was a couple other Cat Stevens songs through listening.
Mhm.
Uh Getting to experience more and more and more has just been really pleasant. He's, you know, for all of his maybe personal controversies at times that Cat Stevens has had,
Sure.
a very good songwriter and a very good performer on this, and vocally not the strongest vocalist on the list,
No.
that's for sure.
Arguably the least strongest on your
Arguably
list.
the least strong on my list for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
But does a very passable job here.
Mhm.
And I think in a way that, quite frankly, a lot of other artists don't to me. His C plus vocals really don't matter with how good the rest of the song
Sure.
is.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I had this as my number 4 for you, and I have it at 4 for the same reason I had Jackie Wilson at 6, whereas it's like compared to the other records, it's a little bit more one note.
Sure.
But again, it's a really excellent note. I think as far as like a straight folk record goes, this is as good as that is going to be. Um, you have Rick Wakeman make an appearance on the piano for Morning is Broken, which is awesome. I will mention the only like really big hit on this record that you didn't talk about is Moonshadow, which is maybe my favorite of the 3 hits, although they're all excellent.
Moonshadow was also a phenomenal song.
Yeah, I mean,
I could have talked about every song individually, honestly.
sure, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and you do have 3 pretty big Cat Stevens hits here, I would say, amongst his like 5 or 6 most known songs. 3 of them are right on this record.
Yeah.
Um, I really liked the second track, which is one I hadn't heard before, or I've heard once before, and I don't really remember. Ruby Love, because, and I have no idea how to correctly pronounce this instrument, but the bozukis,
Yeah.
because it gives it like you have a couple of those playing in harmony. And it's like, we got a Greek song right here. And that's always kind of like an interesting little element to add because there's so few instruments that immediately tell you, like, that's a country. Like, you hear the piano and you're not like, "Ah, Germany," because it's
No,
just so ubiquitous at this point, but you hear the bouzouki, or however you say it, and you're
I
like,
think it is
"Ah,
Bouzouki.
this song has Greek music influencing it,"
Yep.
which is a very rare thing, but I think also a very cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of very few examples that call it into question as clear. Like the sitar
Yeah,
is
that's
the
always
one,
Indian
is
music,
probably the
right?
one.
Sure.
I would say like
There are plenty of others
there are
that
plenty of
haven't
other ones.
crossed over into more of the mainstream and songs that people know as much.
Yeah,
But anyway,
absolutely.
I'll let you get on to your number one.
Yep, just making sure that yep, that is a bomb home run from Nick Castellanos. So
Hmm,
just making sure to tie the score at
excellent.
one. There
Uh,
was a run earlier that I didn't react to, like I said I wouldn't.
Thank you.
Anybody who's questioning that, we are both from the Philadelphia area, and the Phillies are currently in the playoffs.
They are
This is recorded during Game 3 of the NLDS. So
2023.
2023, and our social security numbers are. So yeah, I'll get to my number one. And after listening through this whole, I listened to all of mine first, obviously, and then started my rankings before I did yours. Once through, and I was like, well, this is a race for second place because this one album just felt so much stronger and more put together than anything else. And it's Playing Up a Storm by Greg Allman, which surprised me, quite honestly. I mean, I really
Sure.
liked Greg Allman when we
Oh,
covered
yeah,
him.
of course.
But
He
I was
wasn't
not,
like a clear favorite coming into this or anything.
no, I was not expecting.
I don't even know what the betting odds were coming into this. It's like
That's true.
everybody could, it
Who
could be
could
anyone.
know? Who could know? But here's what I'll tell you about this album. It covers everything that I wanted it to cover. So it's a follow up to his kind of debut album, and it goes from strength to strength, extremely strong, well done. You have this like southern rock quality through some of it, mixed with like enough soul and enough other genres that it's like a nice soupy mix of music that feels really good. But the southern rock parts of it were very, very strong. And I'll be honest with you, dude, like having listened to the Allman Brothers at this time too, I think Greg Allman's solo work is stronger than
By
some of
the
the Allman
late
Brothers at the time.
70s, I don't
Yeah.
disagree with you.
Yeah, I think like right at this time specifically,
Sure.
which I mean, kudos because the Allman Brother band, the Allman Brothers
Allman
is a
Brothers
great
Band,
band.
yes.
Um, so we move on, and I think the thing that really stands out to me is the song construction, the arrangements, the compositions, just all feel so full and like there's so much movement happening. It just feels really like energetic and fun. And then you also get absolutely killer piano and guitar, which both of those instruments are highlighted throughout this album at multiple times, and it's done so well. The vocals, again, shockingly not the best of the day. I mean, not
Not
the
that I mean,
best,
considering he was going up against Lou Gramm and
right?
Florence and, Jackie Wilson and Rod Stewart, like, it's a tough lineup.
It is,
But
but
he's
I
a really good
definitely,
singer, though.
he's a really good singer. I do like, for me, the person who probably focuses on vocals the most here, I would say. Like, it was interesting for
Definitely.
me that the clear winner for me was not the best vocalist,
Yeah.
which, and my second, my one and two are probably
The
5 and 6
2 Yep,
vocals.
you're
You
right.
could put that, you could argue that.
100%.
Um, what really set it aside for me were these highlight songs. So the Let This Be a Lesson to You, Let This Be a Lesson to Ya, sorry, was the song that really showcased for me the fullness of sound that I was talking about. You get really good guitar work, you get really good piano work, you get everybody kind of on the same page in a really good way. I know when I say that, it's like, well, every band has that, yes, but they're doing it here in a way that I would love other bands to emulate, where it sounds like they're playing the same thing and they know what everybody's about to do, but it doesn't feel over rehearsed. And that's, I
Sure.
think, the best part. It feels like free and fancy free, but everybody's on the same page, which is exactly what you want. So for me, the real highlight to me, even though Greg Allman is a very good writer, and we've discussed that before, it was Brightest Smile in Town,
Yep.
the Ray Charles cover, for multiple reasons. One, this is how you do a cover. This is it, everybody. This is the way to do it. This is the textbook way. This should be in the dictionary under good cover song, because it takes the original and lays it bare and does it with this earnest emotion and devotion to making it the best version of the song it could be. It doesn't feel like you're trying to gimmick it. It doesn't feel like you're trying to do anything with it. The big thing about this that I loved was he actually brought in Marty Page to conduct and arrange this. And Marty Page has worked with Ray Charles multiple times. And so, conducted and arranged it in the style of Ray Charles while not being the exact Ray Charles version.
Sure.
And I thought that was a brilliant stroke to do. Yeah. Marty Page is well known in the industry, a well-known sideman and band leader. Worked probably most notably with Mel Torme, but with people like Ella Fitzgerald and Ray Charles, as mentioned. So kudos to him for helping make this one of the best covers I've ever heard.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I mean, I had this as my number 2, but I essentially did a coin flip between this and Rod Stewart. It could have easily been my number 1 for you, and I totally understand what you're saying. But I'll tell you what it was my number 1 for you by a long shot, and it was the actual sounds or timbres or however they record it for every piano sound. Like, every piano sounded like the best piano I had ever heard on a record.
Yeah.
Every Rhodes sounded like the best Rhodes sound I had ever heard on a record. Every organ sounded like one of the best organ sounds I'd ever heard on a record. Like, the choices or the recording strategies that they use to get these certain sounds out of Greg's instruments, it was some of the best studio work that I have ever heard that anyone do.
Absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, this record sounds fantastic. Greg sounds, I think, really good, particularly on Brightest Smile in Town, which was so raw and emotional.
Yeah.
Such a great slow blues song.
I mean,
yeah.
Listen, Ray Charles doesn't mess around.
I love Ray.
I love Ray Charles, and I don't think there's ever been a time I've heard the number of Ray Charles covers I've heard in my life.
Yeah.
So many. I mean, people cover him all the time, professionally, amateur, anytime. He's got such a good catalog of songs.
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely compare one to him because I'm like, he's better.
Yeah,
this is comparable. This is the only one I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's
comparable. Fair. You could argue better, and that's crazy to me.
You're right. So here's what I thought was kind of strange. This record didn't certify or anything. We didn't talk about it before. I had never heard of this record before. And this record is one of the best examples of like Southern rock that I've ever heard in my life. So what had happened was this record came out shortly after Greg got married to Cher. And the owner of the record label, Phil Walden, he's the owner of Capricorn Records, was apparently like so pissed off at him for marrying Cher and moving to California, where I don't know why California was that much of an issue for the record company or why it became impossible for him to record records if he lived in that state. But he only printed 50,000 or printed or whatever you do with a record, pressed,
yeah, whatever.
He only put out 50,000 copies of this record, and then that was it. As an act of like pettiness towards Greg Allman.
Like, here's my issue.
What? This album is
multiple
so
times
good.
Multiple times we have found this where it's like some petty ass like music industry person like villainizes or victimizes whatever. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, do your fucking job. Like, come on. I that's frustrating. I'm sad for Greg Allman that this album didn't
Totally.
get its
It should have
flowers.
at least certified gold. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone who liked Greg Allman or the Allman Brothers or Leonard Skinner or anything would have
Hell,
wanted
how
this
could it?
record.
Even if you sold all
Exactly. I mean, I'm saying, like,
50,000.
they easily I'm sure they sold all 50,000, no problem.
Yeah.
On name recognition alone in the 1970s, Greg Allman is gonna sell you 50,000 records without an issue.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous world that we're in when you make enough money that petty vindictiveness can make you purposely not make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
When it's like,
Right.
I know I'm leaving money off the table here, but
But
I want you to
just
suffer
yeah.
more.
Mhm. You're right.
Like that's
It
rough.
is. So I'll go to my number 1 album then.
You're number one, man,
And
which I
this
mean,
was the
dude,
one coming in. This is what I knew.
yeah.
This is the best album as much as I loved Greg Allman, and I loved all 12 records, like, I really had a great time this week. This is the one that is the one. Like, this is the album that if I could only bring, like, 25 records on a desert island, like, this is the one that I already knew I was bringing ahead of time.
Uh-huh.
It is Inner Secrets.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Nick, Bryce Harper just hit a 3-run
Oh,
home
that's
run.
fantastic.
Sorry, I'm losing my mind.
Okay.
It's Inner Secrets, a great album. We're back.
Okay.
I just had to say
Of
it, dude. I'm
course.
freaking out.
So it's Inner Secrets by Santana, which here is my super hot take about this record right off the bat. It is the critical reception of this record is the most incorrect critical reception of any record in the history of music.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
It was Christgau gave it a C+. All Music gave it 2 out of 5 stars, as did Rolling Stone's album guide. This is maybe Santana's best record. This is maybe one of like the top 10 to 15 records of like the classic rock era. Everything on this record is perfect. So the one thing that a lot of these records have had in common on your side and one or two on my side, mostly on your side, but whatever, has been covers.
Yeah,
And every single cover on this album is done better than the original to the extent that it is now the definitive version of the song in my brain. Everyone.
sure.
And these are all covers of songs by artists that I love. It opens on Dealer, which is a Traffic song. And I
Yep.
love Traffic. Traffic is an A artist in my book, but that makes Santana an A plus because their version of Dealer puts like clearly is better than Traffic's version. Plus, it includes the instrumental composition from Santana of Spanish Rose at the end. You get like some of the best synthesizer solos I've ever heard on that song, and it just like keeps going from there. Like the Santana compositions are great. Move On is great. Facts of Love is great. Wham is great because it really gives you the Latin rock sound Santana's known for. You get Well All Right to open up the second side, which is a Buddy Holly song. And not only have we heard Buddy Holly do it, we've heard Blind Faith do it. We've probably listened to like 3 or 4 other artists cover it. It's a very extensively covered song. It's a wonderful song.
Sure.
Santana's version puts every other version to shame. Like it's not even close how much better they do this song because they arranged it so differently. And it becomes like by far better than anyone else has ever done it. Not even close. And I could say the same thing for Stormy, which is a Classics 4 song. Like a great song, a big hit for Classics 4 when it came out in the 60s. Santana does it, and now it's like, okay, it's a Santana. Like it is now the definitive version of the song that Santana does it.
Yeah.
Life is a Lady Holiday is one of my favorite instrumental songs of all time. Like the guitar is super emotive. It's one of those songs, sort of like Jeff Beck's Because We've Ended as Lovers, where the guitar does so much for the feel and the emotion and story of the song that you don't even need lyrics to make it work. Like everything about this album is perfect. It's an A plus 100 out of 100 album.
Listen, I'm coming in. Maybe not just as hot because I mean, yes, but it was also my clear number one for you. It was very strong. Knowing you as a person, I probably could have just put this at number 1 before we started, but I didn't. One of the very interesting things, and I'll tell you, You might not even know this about yourself because this is something I've
Okay.
observed being, both your best friend and bandmate for
Yes.
years. You have a very signature play style when you play
Oh,
guitar.
yeah.
Well, I know you know that part
Yeah.
where like,
It's really bad.
you yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. No. Of course you're very talented on guitar. I'm not gonna blow too much smoke up your
You
ass here,
shouldn't.
but you're a very talented guitar player. Now, you you have a very signature sound where like
Oh,
I can hear
of everyone
when
that
you
we've talked about
solo
today, Santana is definitely the biggest influence on me as a player.
when you when you solo, it sounds like you're soloing. I can
Mhm.
always hear you, except for when you play Black Magic Woman. When you play a Santana song, you do your absolute best to emulate
That's
Carlos
true.
Santana. Like I can hear like
I
I
try to pick out some more of his lines than I would normally do for other people.
your whole demeanor playing changes to like you go from like playing your version of a song to playing as close to the version of the song as you can because you respect. I can
Sure.
tell how much you respect Carlos
Absolutely.
Santana. It's the same way you get when we play Pink
Mhm.
Floyd.
Yeah.
Like when you
I
do
try to pick
Time,
more
when
of
like
Gilmore's lines out as well. You're
yeah.
right. You're right.
So it's something that I definitely hear, and so I know how much you like revere
Mhm.
Carlos Santana as a guitarist, and I do think like this is the entire band really, really giving it their all
Oh,
here.
and I forgot
Like
to
it's so
mention, I
strong.
said this on the episode, but I was like, "Pat, you've said that there's not, like, a clear vocalist in Santana and who it is, like, Greg Walker,
Yeah,
though, man, right?"
Greg Walker. Yeah, and I mean that's all I was missing from Santana
Yeah.
for me, and like boom, nailed it. Love it. It was easy to put it at number one for me, knowing who you are, but also just on the merits of itself. Like it deserves the spot for me too, as your best
Oh, yeah.
album, the best album we listened to on your end at least this week.
Yeah.
And you could argue for all of them, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm a
I
little
think it's
biased towards my
I think it's
list,
even in
but
contention for the best album we listened to all season. That's how much I love Inner
I
Secrets.
I legitimately think there's more than one of those
Yeah,
on
you're right.
these
You're right.
12 where I mean, it's
I
close.
agree.
This has been a very strong
You know
best of the
what?
rest.
Speaking of which, ready for something that's now I'm making canon. It wasn't.
I'm
I
ready.
was all confused, I was all mixed up, I was having problems, and I just had you pick at random. My official ranking is gonna move Village Green Preservation Society up to 2 as well, and everything else back 1.
Good. You know why that's good? Because that lines us up
Perfectly?
way
Yeah.
better. Oh, I'm excited. Okay. Good. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We will get there. Um
I have to. It's a record
hey,
but the thing about Inner Secrets and Village Green Preservation Society is that they are both records that are so personal to me because
yeah,
I grew up with both of those records. I experienced both of those records as a kid, through my adolescence, and as like through every stage of my adulthood as standby favorites. And I've been waiting to listen to both of them for the last like 6 months
because you knew they
because
were
I knew
coming.
they were
Yeah.
coming.
Hey, I totally get it, man. I think you should be happy though. Like I really do because our styles of music intersect a lot, but also differ a
Oh
lot.
yeah,
I think, we definitely have a Venn diagram
for sure.
of music together. It's not a circle. So the fact that I also had both of those at 1 and 2, I was like, yeah, no, they belong
They
up
do.
there.
And they were the 2 bands that we had matched up on the season finale.
And for good
Yeah.
reason. For good reason. Although, hey, Santana gets
The revenge here.
his
Yes,
revenge
by
on here.
getting the
He gets
best
to be
album
the
of the best of the
best
rest.
of your best of the rest. And that's gonna really wrap us up here
It
for
is.
albums. Do we want to run through them real
Sure, go
quick?
ahead.
Yeah, so I'll run through my rankings. So I had hold on. My one thing just
Okay.
disappeared, and that's not
That's
good
fine,
for
I'll do
me.
mine. So, I
Yeah, do
had at
yours.
6, Night of the Living Dregs by Dixie Dregs. At 5, The Turn of a Friendly Card by the Alan Parsons Project. 4 was Hero and Heroine by Straubs. 3 is now Permanent Waves by Rush. 2, The Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society. And number 1 was Inner Secrets by Santana.
Perfect. And I want to say for me, because you did that shift, The only things that we had different were I
We flipped
flipped
Parsons and
turn of
Strauss.
a friendly car. Yeah, that was it.
They're so
Everything else
close.
was nil. So we had 1, 2, 3, and 6 all the same. So mine were number 6. I had Rod the Bod Stewart. Every picture tells a story. At 5, I had 4 by Foreigner. At 4, I
5?
had Whispers. I had Whispers by Jackie Wilson. 3, I had How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful by Florence and the Machine. 2 is Teaser in the Cat Stevens. And 1 is Playing Up a Storm by Greg Allman.
Excellent.
And
What a
that was
great week.
close. Yeah, you had, let's see, 1, 2. You had 2 of mine right.
Okay.
You had Florence and you had
4 of mine.
Foreigner.
Okay.
Yep. But hey,
Tough.
I mean,
raised within margins all around.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I think realistically, my 1 would stay my 1 because I felt so strongly about it when I listened to it. If I listen to these again next month, all of the other 5 could change.
Yeah, no, I
That's
agree
how
with
it felt. Like it felt so good to me to listen to these.
Yeah, I mean, the thing now is, what is season 7 gonna do? Like season
Right.
7, can you possibly stand up to having 12 albums where like every one was a struggle to rank?
Right? I mean, it's gonna be tough because we've definitely had seasons like
we've had a lot of fun. Like all of our seasons have great artists to highlight and talk about in them.
Sure, but we've had legit seasons where it's been like, all right, we got to listen to. I mean, there was times when we had third person and we were listening to 14, 15 albums.
Yeah,
albums like 13 through 15 were like, okay.
Sometimes they were like just fine,
a little weaker, just fine.
Yeah.
You know, but there's definitely been time where it's like,
there was that time that you picked that Prince album that I hated.
I stand by it, man. It was.
I understand why you picked it, but I hated it.
Sure, that's fine. Hey, that's part of the Venn diagram of us, right?
That was the only time we've ever had a record, I think, on Best of the Rest that I just flat out didn't like.
Yeah, but you didn't like Prince in general. Like
that's true.
So I mean,
although to be fair, I liked his first album and his last album. I just don't like the famous part of his career.
Sure, and that is more than okay. No one's gonna fault you for it. People may judge you, but no one will fault you. But
I am at fault though.
Listen, this has been a great episode. I would love to stay on and hang out even longer with all of you, but it is Phillies playoff baseball, and they scored 6 runs in the 3rd inning.
Hell yeah!
So I need to go shout until I can't speak. And I'll be doing that. Before we go, though, I want to tell you a little fun part. I think it was Sunday Night Football because I think the announcers had to go into their B-roll rather early because of the blowout that was happening. Which anybody who doesn't like the Cowboys, great night.
Oh, that was nice.
But they mentioned.
I mean, I wish they could have blown them out and looked bad though. Yeah. If there was a way they could have won by the same score, but also not looked like a good football team, that would have been nice.
But honestly, I would love if the Eagles were the ones who made them look like a bad football team.
Oh, for sure.
That would be great.
That'd be excellent.
I'm fine if they keep looking cool until they play us, and then
that would be nice.
We make them look like a college team. That'd be wonderful for me.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, I'm not saying they're bad. The 49ers
they're really good.
Are a very good team. As much as I want us to beat them, I'm not going to say they're not a good team.
Yeah, you can't.
But the little fun fact that I was mentioning was they pointed out and did like a 2-minute little blurb on Cindy Blackman Santana, who was there.
Oh, okay.
And we're talking about her as like being such an excellent band leader and all that stuff. And I just thought that was like a cool moment because of us talking about Santana the week before and today. I was like, oh, cool. Like a little moment for Cindy Blackman Santana to be on national television. She was at the game. So
very cool.
That was cool. Stay tuned next week. Our award show, our big old award show. I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, breaking down all of the best of the best of this season, who wins the whole season, and then also who doesn't win and who comes in the least win.
Who
Who
is the least
comes in?
winner?
Yeah, who comes in the last place of
Sure.
winning
Yeah,
of
that'll
the
be
season?
interesting. And then we have
And
season 6.5 to look forward to after that. So
which
it'll
is
be nice.
awesome stuff too. Which is going to be a whole new vehicle for us here.
That's right.
Which will be a fun little dive for me because you've talked to me about it a bunch and I get what we're doing,
Yeah,
but I'm like, okay, cool. This is new. This is
exactly.
how are we going to score it? How are things gonna
Yeah,
match up? So that's exciting. It's exciting to go through.
absolutely.
Other than that, listen, keep doing your jobs, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff, and have a great day. Boom. Brother, 6 runs in that inning,
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
Casty hit a solo shot and
Who?
then
Oh,
just
Castellanos.
on base. And then Harper hits a 3-run bomb.
Nice.
And so I'm like, okay, cool. And then I just look up and 2 more runs. I think Stott did something because
Okay.
I wasn't looking at that run score. And then Castellanos gets the 3rd out. So they batted around.
Nice.
Exactly what you need, man. Loved it. Oh.
Yeah, they just got to hold on.
Yep. Just or pile on, honestly.
The pylon would be better.
Well, did you hear what the so the way the game ended? You said you watched the game.
I did.
So you saw how the game ended.
I think
On me.
I was going back and forth
Okay.
by the 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth. I was watching football.
So Castellanos hits a ball to right center
Okay.
that it looks gone from the bat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so Harper overextends past second and comes, and so he gets thrown out.
Sure.
Which, whatever. I'm not, honestly, I want that aggression out of him.
Yeah.
It's worth times when it backfires. In the locker room, loudly in the Braves locker room, which could be heard from the Phillies locker room, Orlando Arcia is just shouting haha, thanks, Bryce, loud, clowning Bryce Harper loudly, publicly too, in front of the media. And
is he one of the Braves players, I assume?
He's one of the Braves infielders.
Okay.
And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, what are you doing? Do you know who this is? Do you know what you've done?
Yeah, I mean, also, are you not a professional? Do you not understand the of what he was doing there? Do you not understand in the situation that he was in with what he was seeing off of the bat, that there was one play to make to try to keep your team in it?
Yeah, he off the bat, he was like, that's either bouncing off the top of the wall and I'll score from first, or it's a home run and I'll score from first, which is what I thought. So I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
The center fielder made a good play to bounce off the wall with enough force that he could throw it in.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes it happens. But yeah, I'm really excited to be up 6-1 right now.
That is nice.
So that is pretty awesome. All right. Listen,
let's get out of here, then.
I'm gonna bounce. Keith, I've seen you the whole time, man. Can't wait to keep watching these Phils, man. Go Phils. And cool, man. I'm gonna roll. You roll. Good. I will talk to you Saturday.
By Saturday. I'm sure we'll talk before, but yes.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk before too, but definitely on Saturday.
Adios.
All right. Bye, peeps.